What happens when a statue comes back? After protests, after removal, who would want to put it back up again? Hi, my name's Bethany Belisle, and this is The Statues Will Cry Out. Previously, we've discussed why a statue is removed and what replaces it. But sometimes the story doesn't always move forward. Sometimes it goes back, or at least tries to. Today, we're discussing why reinstall a controversial statue. To answer that, we're going to look at three things: how reinstallation happens, why groups push to bring statues back, and what it tells us about public memory and power. Reinstalling a statue isn't as simple as putting it back to where it was. Like removal, it involves decisions, institutions, and strategy. Official reinstallation occurs through government vote or a formal policy reversal, often signaling a shift in political leadership or a desire to restore a specific national narrative. After the Jasinski Monument was removed from the fall of the Soviet Union, some local elites began pushing for its restoration. The Moscow city legislature eventually approved a referendum on its return to its square. Relocation with reinterpretation happens when a monument is moved to a new site where the context is fundamentally altered, often shifting the focus from celebration to education. The Jefferson Davis Monument was removed from the state capitol rotunda and designated for relocation to a state historical site at Davis's birthplace, where it could be historicized. Often, reinstallation or preservation is mandated by courts or binding legal agreements, where heritage groups use property law to maintain control of the landscape. To avoid lengthy and costly legal battle, the Board of Supervisors in Loudoun County, Virginia, voted to return the Silent Sentinel statue to the United Daughters of the Confederacy, acknowledging their claim of private property and allowing them to take the statue back into their possession. When a physical statue is gone, groups may use replicas, temporary displays, or digital technology to restore its message to the public square. To make a historical site visible again after the removal of physical markers in Berlin, Germany, a museum reinstated large format photographs of the site to engage the public's commemorative memory without reinstalling a permanent stone monument. Each pathway signals something different about legitimacy, authority, and who has the final say. So, why bring a controversial statue back? The decisions are driven by the following major motivations. The most common argument for reinstallation or preservation is that removing statues is an attempt to erase history. The second defense is an identity defense. Advocates for reinstallation argue that every people needs its heroes, and that removing figures deprives specific groups of their ancestral heroes who helped shape their group identity. The third defense is political backlash. Reinstallation is often a signal of loyalty or a countermove in a broader culture war. Many supporters cite a general opposition to political correctness or wokeism, framing removal as a sign of institutional weakness. Research indicates that some groups oppose the removal of right-wing statues as a matter of principle, while simultaneously supporting the removal of left-wing displays they find offensive, a phenomenon known as intuitive intolerance. The fourth defense is reframing the narrative. Sometimes a statue is brought back or kept in a modified way to change its illusionary force, what the statue does in a place. These arguments are strategic. They are designed to re-legitimize the statue. One group may see reinstallation as a way to correct a mistake. Another will see it as a repetition of one. Reinstallation is often less about the past and more about the present struggle over identity and power. When a statue is reinstalled, the debate doesn't reset, it intensifies, because now the space carries multiple layers of meaning: the original message, the removal, and the return. According to the guide Honoring and Admiring the Immoral, honoring is not just a feeling, it's a deliberate activity. By giving a figure a statue, A society uses valuable and limited resources to convey that this person is worth those resources. Reinstallation communicates that the figure is a fitting object of admiration, effectively telling the public, this is someone you ought to admire. When that figure is someone who committed grave wrongs, putting them back on a pedestal performs a derogatory pedesting that indirectly ranks their victims of having lesser moral worth. A major risk of reinstallation is what philosophers call the spreading tenacity of admiration. When we admire one aspect of a person, like their leadership or talent, that feeling naturally tends to spread to our evaluation of their whole character. By reinstalling the statue, the state gives the subject moral power, the ability to influence the public's judgment about whether their immoral behavior is tolerable or acceptable. Reinstallation often manifests the vice of globalism, reducing a person to a single feature. Reinstalling a statue often supports the myth that a person's greatness is more important than their immorality. In a political sense, reinstallation is often a signal of loyalty sent by elites to their superiors, demonstrating their commitment to a specific regime or version of history. It can signify an attempt to reclaim the landscape from grassroots movements. For example, the decision to place Christopher Columbus statue on White House grounds was framed as a way to reclaim heritage from radicals who had toppled it elsewhere. Ultimately, reinstalling a statue of an immoral figure places the entire community in a gray zone. This is a moral space in which the state speech implicates its citizens in the figure's immorality, rendering the decision making process not a morally clean option. Taking down a statue is a radical argument with the past, but putting it back is an assertion of authority that forces the public to confront which version of history the state currently chooses to honor. So, what did we learn? Reinstalling a statue isn't just about putting something back, it's about reasserting a message and reopening a debate. It shows us that public memory isn't settled, it's constantly being negotiated, challenged, and even reversed. So, here's a question: can a controversial statue ever be neutral again once it's been removed? Next time, we're looking at the Albert Pike statue in Washington, D.C. as a case study for all of these previous episodes.